All right, well, I think we will get started. Welcome, everybody. This is going to be a recorded webinar session, so if you do arrive late or if you arrive or have arrived after the fact a little bit, that should be okay. We'll have this recording to pass on to Ecology once we're finished, so you'll be able to review everything that we do today as many times as you need. There'll also be some materials that we pass on to you as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen and get us started with the initial part of the presentation. As I go along, I'm going to be leaving some time in between topics to make sure that if there are any questions, that we can make sure that those are answered and everyone gets on the right page before we continue. If there is any questions that you have that are specific to ecology, we do have some ecology representatives joining us here today. Hopefully, if I don't have the answer you're looking for, they will. But we will be going through an overview of the IGX process. I'll kind of explain as we go along exactly why and how we will be looking at all of these new aspects of the IGX grants management system. But I'm going to share my screen here. We will get started with our presentation. And again, drop any questions in the chat as we go along. Well, welcome everybody to the Department of Ecology for Washington External User Webinar. And again, if you have any questions that come up during this presentation, please drop those into the chat of this meeting. We also make sure to pause at points to go through those questions, but we're also going to keep a record of those questions as we go along, just to make sure that everyone is going to be taken care of before this webinar is over. And today, we're going to be discussing the IGX grants management system that is going to be used by Ecology for their grants management. Now, IGX is an internet-based program that just requires an internet connection and certain device requirements in order to work. So IGX is compatible with the 4 most widely used internet browsers: Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Firefox, and Safari. While using IGX, you may also be prompted to download files from that system. These will usually be in the forms of PDFs or spreadsheet formatted files. You could use Adobe Acrobat Reader for those PDFs, Microsoft Excel or Google Sheets for the spreadsheet files, or any other third-party program that you need to be able to access and review those documents after you get them from IGX. So for today's agenda of what we're going to be covering in IGX, it's going to really be split into 2 parts. In the first part, we're going to go over the basics of using IGX, such as the registration, the dashboard, and the use of your profile and menu options in your navigation bar. After we review the basics of IGX, we're then going to go into how to use a document in the system. And this could apply to any document. So we're going to show you the basics of navigating through a document. That document may be an application, a progress report, a reimbursement request in theory. So we're going to show you how to navigate any document of any kind in our system as we go along. And that's going to include finding those documents, some functionality that you're going to see on the forms of those documents as you fill them out, and some document tools that'll make it easier to find information or communicate about the documents that you're filling out. So the first part of what we're going to begin with today is going over the external user registration for this new IGX system. And this is going to be a guide that's going to assist external users and organizations with registration for EAGL IGX. And this will be for current users of EAGL, new EAGL users with a secure Access Washington account, an SAW account, or brand new users to both EAGL and to SAW. So the first thing we're going to review for the external user registration is what it's going to be like for a current EAGL user to register with IGX. So to begin with, you would log into EAGL, and you would click the Secure Access Washington account link from the EAGL external page. Now, I do want to make note before we get too far into this registration that you will be receiving a link for this new EAGL website from Ecology. Ecology is going to post the link to this new website in the Ecology Grants and Loans web pages, and they will send it to you via email. So there will be two places where this new link will be made available. After you access that link and you're taken to EAGL, you would click the Secure Access Washington account link from the EAGL external page. Once you click that link, you'll be taken to this SAW login page. Here you would enter in information about your Secure Access Washington account. And after you put in that SAW username and password, you would then be able to log in directly into IGX. That would be the process if you are an existing EAGL user. If you are a user who is new to EAGL, but you already have an existing Secure Access Washington account, what you would do is access the EAGL link. You would select the Secure Access Washington account link from the EAGL external page. You would log into your Secure Access Washington account using your existing username and password. And you would then be prompted to fill out an EAGL registration form for IGX. As you're filling out this form, you would select the role that is most appropriate for the work that you will do. You would then be able to select your organization from this drop-down menu. If your organization does not exist in the system yet, you can select My Organization is not listed with this checkbox on the registration form. You would then fill in your organization's information in these fields below. If you are adding your organization, you will need your agency's federal tax ID and statewide vendor number from the Office of Financial Management System to complete the registration. After you filled in all of your information, you would select the Register button at the bottom of this page to complete your registration. Ecology staff will then review your registration request. Once it's been approved, Ecology will send you an email letting you know your registration has been approved. What you would then be able to do is access this EAGL link and select Secure Access Washington to then log in and access IGX. So I just want to remind you that if you are registering your organization in EAGL for the first time, you will need to have your statewide vendor number and your federal tax ID. So if you are a new user to both SAW and to EAGL, you would go to that EAGL link and you would select the Secure Access Washington link here. When you are taken to this page, instead of logging in, you would select Sign Up in this top banner, and you would complete your registration for SAW. Once you've created your SAW account, you would wait for a confirmation email. In that confirmation email will be a link. You would click that link, return to the EAGL external page, and then select the Secure Access Washington link to be taken to this SAW login. You would then enter your new login information, hit Submit, and then you would complete the EAGL registration form. Just like we've gone over, you would select your role that would be most appropriate for what you're going to do in the system. Choose your organization if it's already listed, or select My Organization is not listed and fill out your organization information. If you are adding that new organization, again, you will need your agency's federal tax ID and statewide vendor number. Once you have completed that registration information, you would select the Register button to complete that and send that to Ecology for review. Once Ecology staff receives notice of that registration request, they'll review it, And once it's been approved, EAGL will send you an email letting you know your registration has been approved, and you will then have access to the system. What you would do then is access the EAGL link, go to the external page and select Secure Access Washington, and then log in using your SAW information. So before we continue, I just want to make sure, are there any questions that we have in the chat that have been outstanding that we need to get to? I'm seeing a few questions in here.
It would be really helpful if those of you who are posting about fireflies could stop, because it is making it really difficult for me to get to the questions that people have. So if we could use the chat just for questions, I would really, really appreciate it. There is a question about continuing to use EAGL to submit PR until EAGL IGX is online.
Hi, Jessica. It's Dawn Drake, Agency Grant Loan Coordinator at the Department of Ecology. EAGL is currently turned on, but it's in read-only mode. We cannot accept payment requests right now until new IGX is up and ready to go live. So no, you cannot continue to use EAGL IG. It's now available for viewing your old closed agreements until they have a chance to be migrated over into EAGL IGX.
There is another question asking if we are already a user and we typically access the online portal beginning with the Secure Access Washington site. Will the pathway from SAW to EAGL still be active?
No, it won't work with the new EAGL IGX, but it does work for EAGL IG. We're going to be sending out a link. You'll find it in an email that gets sent to all users of the EAGL system. You're also going to see it listed on Ecology's web pages when the database goes live or the system goes live. And you'll have to go to a new link that's hosted in the cloud by our vendor partner, Agate. It'll be your login page. From there, it's going to you'll click the link and it's going to prompt you to enter your SAW username and password. And the estimated go live date is been changed, and I believe it now is going to be on October 15th.
Great. Thank you so much for answering those questions, Don. I appreciate that. So it looks like Maggie got another question that was asked in the chat. If we are already registered but have a new person, what steps do they take? Maggie answered that a new user can follow the new user registration instructions to complete their registration, and the new user registration step-by-step instructions will be posted once IGX goes live. So if you're worried about retaining any of the information that we just went over, that should all be sent out to you along with that link to the new EAGL external site.
There is one more question that was a little further back. Several of us support both the Port of Tacoma and the Northwest Seaport Alliance. Can you speak to anything we should be aware of related to working for these two entities?
No, folks that are assigned to multiple organizations inside the system will still have the same access they had before we made the transition. So you should still be able to log in, and but you will see that when you're in the system, the typical place that you used to select to choose the organization that you wanted to work on has moved. So it's going to look just a little bit different. Later on in the presentation, Andrew will take you to the profile section and show you how to access the link and see if you're a member of more than one organization, what that looks like. So you might want to pay close attention to that piece.
I'll see another question in there about the kind of the way that we're referring to the system. So it says we refer to IGX and EAGL, but will you still be calling it EAGL, or will we now refer to it using IGX and logging into IGX?
So it's Eagle Old School IG is what the one that you were used to using, Jerry. You used Eagle IG. IG and IGX are the naming conventions that the vendor partner Agate used to identify the different versions of the system we're using. So the old one was Eagle IG. You got that from Brian Brada in Water Quality, Darcy Hughes. He was the one that came up with that. And I don't hate it. So maybe we do have to have a branding party later on. But in the interim, we're calling it Eagle for the one that everyone's been using since 2014. And the new one that you'll be using shortly in just 2 weeks is Eagle IGX until Brian Brada gets his way and we're calling it Beagle, I guess. Thank you.
I like that name too, actually. And Jim asks, I work for a consulting firm and assist many different jurisdictions with ECI applications, ECY applications. Do I need to establish new permissions for each organization, or can my consulting firm's information be used for all of them?
When folks are able to access the new Eagle IGX system, you will have the same access and permissions that you had in the old Eagle system. So you shouldn't see any difference, Jim, other than how you access those different organizations you work with. And again, pay attention when Andrew speaks to that so you can see how to access working and filling out applications for the different folks you work with.
All right. Well, thank you so much for those questions. Really good questions so far. I'm glad everyone is engaged and staying with us. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to transfer into the actual IGX system to show you how it works and go into an overview of navigating through it. What I'm going to show you is the dashboard first. This will essentially be the view that you see after you log into IGX. Either for the first time or for your umpteenth time, you should be taken to this dashboard first, and then you'll be able to navigate through the system. Share that here. So what we are looking at now is what would be called the IGX Dashboard. This is going to be the view that you will see when you log into the system. And you can see in the upper right corner here, it's indicating that I am logged in as an authorized official. This would be considered an external user role. And I'm going to be using this to show what navigating the system would be like for external users and what their experience may be using the system. And on this dashboard here, the first thing we're going to discuss is this navigation bar at the top of the screen. And this navigation bar is going to have some buttons on the left and right side of it in the corners. This home button in the upper left corner will take you back to this dashboard from almost any page in the system. So if you are, let's say, going through a document, you could hit home in the upper left. That would take you straight back to this dashboard. And next to this home button is an option for searches. And when I select searches, it brings up a drop-down menu for me. And it lets me choose whether I want to parse through documents that I've selected recently from searches I've made, or if I want to be taken to a search page for a specific kind of document. So in this case, I have search pages available for both applications and reports and payment requests. And just to give you a preview, when I select one of those search options, I'm taken to this search page. And on this page, I have the ability to search by the unique name of the document, the subcode of the document, which tends to be the fiscal year, this type, in this case, what type of application would I want to search for, the current status of that application, the organization who initiated the application, or a specific person associated with this application. So these would be the search options available if I select one of these search pages from my top menu navigation. I'm now going to hit home to go back to my dashboard. So we have home and searches in the upper left. On this right side, the first button I'm going to demonstrate is for high contrast mode. Selecting this button changes the appearance of your website to be more ADA compliant and easier for those with visual impairments to navigate through. If you decide you want to change your website back to its original appearance, you can select the high contrast mode button again to have that change back. Next to it is also a button for contact info. This is where specific Ecology contact info could be found. There's also the option from this Contact Us button to submit a support request. We'll get more into what a support request would look like and what entails submitting a report request a little later on. Next to the button for contact information is the button for training manuals. This could be where you find reference materials or information about the system that you will need to use to navigate through it. For instance, right now, the external user manual is where you would be able to access all the reference information about IGX. That's going to be found in this training manuals tab at the top of your navigation bar. And finally, this is the button for help. This can give you specific information if you are uncertain about how to navigate through or use a page you are on. This help option can be used to give you that additional context or to let you know what you need to do in order to get further assistance. So those are the buttons at the top of your navigation bar. To the right of all of these buttons on my navigation bar is my username, who I'm currently logged in as in the system. If I select that username, it'll bring up a drop-down menu. And we will now go through all the options in this drop-down menu, starting with your user profile. So I'm going to select profile. And I'll first be taken to the user profile for the user that I'm currently logged in as in this system. And when I'm on this page, I see my information for my user. And on this right side here, I see which organizations this user is currently assigned to. Now, it's currently assigned as an authorized official to just the one agate rollover test organization. But if there was an additional organization that I was assigned to with an additional role, that would also be listed here in this table. So looking at this, I can see what my actual role is in this organization, when this role was made active and by who, and an inactive date if I happen to have one. And an inactive date can be useful because that would mean once the inactive date has passed, I would no longer have access to IGX under this organization. So essentially, this role would no longer have access to IGX once this inactive date comes to pass. That can be useful if you have users in your organization who you know will only need to have access to IGX for a limited amount of time. You can assign them that inactive date when you know that they no longer need access to IGX, and then when that date passes, they'll automatically be locked out of the system, at least for that role in your organization. Scrolling down, I see my contact information here, which will usually default with this contact and address information into my organization's information. So that will be the default for this information unless I decide I want to edit that for my user after I add this user to my organization. I also have the ability to choose additional personal pronouns from that bottom part of the user profile. So from this user profile, looking at our left navigation bar, I see options now for organization. So what I can do is for the agate rollover test organization specifically, I'm going to click this option to see the organization information for that test organization. So on this page, I do see the information for my organization. And because I have an authorized official role, I do see a save button, which means that I'm able to edit this organization information as an authorized official. A role that is not an authorized official, but still in this organization, will likely have different permissions and may not be able to make changes to this organization information. They would just be able to view it. So with this organization information, I can see things like the statewide number, information about that organization itself, and contact info. I also have the ability to see a list of organization members in the system. So when I select organization members, I can see a list of all of the members in this system, whether they are active users or inactive users. Using this search bar at the top, I can narrow down these results either by the name of the user that I want to search for, or if I want to specify which roles I want to see from this list. If I were to select one of those roles or enter into this name field and hit search, that would then narrow down my results. If I wanted to see the original results, I could just hit clear and search again. Oh, I need to make sure I don't select that role. Then this would show me all the organization members, regardless of role, in that organization. So on this page, I can also see that inactive date, letting me know that this user no longer has permission to access documents related to this organization. I also see a role in here that's a contractor. It's important to note that contractors and consultants hired by your organization can only hold either the contractor or writer roles at the organization and the document level. And we'll go into document level roles a little later on. But that's to ensure that organizational employees can review and approve their work properly. So as my authorized official, I can now select one of these other users. If there is a hyperlink for one of these users' names, that means that I'm able to select that hyperlink and see this user's profile. I can then get back to where I was by selecting organization members from this left navigation. And if I were to see a member of my organization that did not have a hyperlink, it would instead have gray text here instead of this blue hyperlink. That would mean that I would not have access to that user's profile to be able to see their information in detail. Now that we've looked at organization members, let's go on this left side here to organization categories. So organization categories are important because these categories will determine which kind of opportunities are made available to your organization. For instance, my organization is under the county category. This means that I may see different opportunities than an organization that has a federal agency category, and vice versa. The first person to register an organization with the system is required to select the category for that organization, and there should be at least one. If you need to add additional categories or change which category has been selected, you can contact eagle.support@ecy.wa.gov, and we'll pass along that email address if you need Ecology to make that change for you. So again, you'll add the original category when you add your organization. You would then contact Ecology to add additional categories or to change that selected category. So before I continue, I just want to make sure that we're getting all the questions answered in the chat about the user profile, the dashboard, everything that we've covered so far. Yeah, Daniel asked about when they'd be able to register for IGX. It looks like that will be 10:15. Paul asks when the information be rolled over from the original EAGL system.
Hi, Paul. It's Dawn again. I just wanted to let folks know that any active agreement or application that's in the database will be coming over. And I keep calling it a database and they keep reminding me it's considered a system. I apologize. The system, when it goes live, will have every active document and agreement available in it. We will be bringing over the closed agreements that belong to your organization later on, which we call post-go live. So right out the gate, active work will be brought over immediately. Closed work will be brought over incrementally as time permits once we go live.
Perfect. Thank you, Don. Sarah asks, will the old EAGL system still be accessible after 10/15?
Yes, Sarah, that's a great question. We're going to leave the old EAGL available for folks to use for read-only purposes until all the documents are moved into IGX, and then it'll be retired. And it may take us some time because there's thousands of them, but until we get everything in IGX and available to you, it will be available for your organizations to use. If they're not already registered, folks will have to register for the old EAGL access just to see the documents that are there. What about agreements being negotiated but not active? Those will be brought over as well. That's considered active. So any applications that were just submitted before the blackout period began, anything that hadn't been officially closed is going to be brought over. You said that there was a second comment by Fran and Milan. What was that?
So she asks, does IGX make more distinctions between authorized official and other roles? And she says, in the case of her agency, there are like 20 of us with the role of authorized official, but only a few of us really need full access at the organizational level. Project managers need permissions to submit PRs and other info relevant to their specific awards, but don't need full authorized official access for the entire agency.
So that we're able to respect all organizations that we work with in their internal protocols, it's a role-based system. So you get to determine at the organization level what roles work best for your staff and your consultants to have. Now, just keep in mind that depending on the role, certain permissions do become available to you. As folks that have been using the system for a while can tell you, only those folks that have the authorized official role can start or initiate an application. So that's the most permissions of any role that you can have as a recipient in the system. Then there's the recipient project manager and the recipient financial manager roles. Those are the second and third most used roles for folks in recipient roles. The recipient financial manager has the ability to initiate a payment request. They have the ability to fill out some of the payment request forms, but they don't have the ability to fill out the progress report. And that can cause problems for some folks. And the same is true in the reverse for the project manager. They can initiate a payment request or progress report, but they can't fill out the expenditure form. And you might think, that's crazy. Why do they have all these different roles? And that's because we do business with folks that from all organization types. There are some organizations that have very stringent protocols, and only one person in their organization is allowed to hold the authorized official role, period. They will not allow any other person to hold that role. And so we have to be able to be amenable to every organization's type's infrastructure and internal controls. So we do have explicit instructions and definitions in the roles and what their permissions can do inside the system. And you can always contact me directly or the resource mailbox that Andrew shared earlier, and we can talk more about what permissions might be best or what role assignments work best for you at the organization level and also on the individual document level.
Excellent question. Thank you so much for that answer.
Will I get link be emailed to us so we can save it in our favorites? Yes. So there's two ways that we intend on communicating, not only the links to the new environment, but also the training materials. We plan on sending out a communication via email to all the registered users. We have over 5,000 active users. So we'll be sending out individual emails to you folks with that information. It's also going to be updated on Ecology's web pages as well. And does the authorized official role in any organization mean that they have a role on all agreements? Well, that depends. If an authorized official is assigned today, they won't automatically have access to all of the agreements or documents that were created before they were assigned. Those will have to be someone in the authorized official role for the organization will have to assign them to any document that was created once they were added. But once the authorized official is assigned, they are automatically assigned to everything that's created after that moment in time. So I hope that answered your question, Lydia.
Then Aaron asks, can we get a role that has the authorized official level of ability for PRs without the authorized official ability to change users?
You can always make that request, but we don't have that role at this time. We had to make a decision back in 2014, and that was to make the authorized official role omnipotent, and they can do everything on the external user side. But that's a good suggestion. We'll make a note of it. Maybe in the future we can accommodate that, but not at this time.
Good. Just want to make sure, are there any other questions before we continue? I really appreciate you stepping in,
Jill
Dawn.
did.
Yeah.
Oh, no problem. Jill said that there might need to be a role below the AO level. Well, some folks enjoy or appreciate the writer role. That role can edit documents, any document in the system on behalf of the organization that they're assigned to, but they can't initiate or submit. That's why we allow the folks that are consultants or contractors to use that role. By using that role assignment for them, it ensures that the folks that hired them take responsibility to review and approve their work. But it doesn't only have to be used by folks that are contractors or consultants. It can be used by anybody in your organization. So there's different combinations we can help you select or determine to use that works best for your org. And we'll be happy to talk about that with you offline anytime you need.
I don't see any additional questions that have come in. If anything does come in as we keep going, please continue to drop those questions in the chat. Really appreciate everyone's questions here today. Been really good. But let's continue navigating through IGX. We've gone over and looked at the user profile and the organization profile, which includes the information, the members of that organization, and then the categories of that organization. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit this home button to go back to my dashboard. I'm going to go back to my upper right corner to my username to select that dropdown. And I'm going to choose now messages, one option below profile. And on messages, I would be able to see system generated messages related to either specific documents or to my system in general, to IGX. These messages are only going to be able to be received to your inbox. You would not be able to send any messages, but this is where you can see any messages that have been sent to your profile. If you want to see the details of one of these messages, you can select this open button to the right side of this table. And that would then take you to the bottom of the page to see the details of that message. You can see when it was sent, who the intended recipient is of this message. And after reviewing these message contents, you can decide if you want to keep that message in your inbox or if you want to archive that message so it will no longer appear in your inbox, but it will not be deleted from the system. If you want to search for messages in your inbox, you have the ability to search either from the sender, the subject of the message, a document associated with that message, or if you would want to search through your archived messages and display those instead of merely your active messages that have not been archived yet. So on the upper right, underneath messages, will be our option for support. And support is where you would go to submit a support request in the system. So when you submit this request, you would then be able to see your existing support requests down here. It's important to note, these are support requests that have already been submitted by my specific user. These are not going to show you all the support requests that have been submitted in the system, just the ones that I personally have submitted. So if I wanted to, I could search through my support requests that are already existing, either by the status of those requests, when it was submitted, or when it was closed, a keyword associated with that request, or the specific request ID if I happen to know that number. To see details about an existing request, I can select this Edit button here to see what had been entered initially, its current status, and any additional messages that may have been left by whoever closed this request. If I want to, I can export these support requests to a spreadsheet format if I want to gather all this information for a report. Then if I wanted to create a new support request, I would select this Add button in the upper right here. When I do, it'll bring up a window where I can go into details about what my support request will be. So I can say how I want to be contacted about this request, either by email, to my primary phone or secondary phone, or to my cell phone if I want to get that information as soon as possible. So I'll select email. And that means that any responses to this support request will be going to the email that my account has on file. I would then select the category of my request. So in this case, I'll say something's going on with one of my forms. I'll choose which provider organization I want to direct my request to. So in this case, it would be the Department of Ecology. And then I would fill in my information on this specific request. Once this is submitted, this will then be sent to the EAGL support team, which would be the Ecology staff. The Ecology staff would receive your support request, they would review it, and then reach back in touch with you depending on your preferred contact method. You'd then be able to see the result of that request, change here from submitted, ideally to closed after it's been assigned. So I'm now going to go home back to my dashboard. The last option that we'll go examine here under my username is to log out. At any time, I can select log out to be taken out of the IGX system. So now that we've looked at this navigation bar at the top of our dashboard, let's go a little bit further down to examine the contents of our dashboard below this initial navigation bar. So the first thing we can see is this public disclosure notice. It's going to give you information about how information on this site is used. It'll also give you a link to the Public Records Act if you need more information about that. And then below that public disclosure notice will be instructions on how to first use the system and initiate opportunities. It'll tell you which roles that you need to use. And then below these instructions, there would be a panel for your current tasks, so existing documents that you are assigned to, as well as a panel to view available funding opportunities or to initiate a new document or application. So these will be the panels available to you on the dashboard for navigating through the system. There will also be an announcements panel where you can see more information and with links provided by Ecology. So looking at our panels, I see for both of these panels, I also have the option to filter through my results. What this will do for each of these panels is allow me to essentially search through the results that are currently showing in these panels and narrow down what I want to see as my current user. So I can search for the specific names of documents organizations that will have initiated that document, the document type, whether I want to narrow down to see just applications or just payment requests, the current status of one of those documents to which I'm assigned, and if I want to see documents where I have an active task or all documents that I'm assigned to. And this may be a document that I've submitted that I don't necessarily need to see in my tasks, but if I want to see those documents that my user is attached to, this is how I could expand those search results. So if I were to make that choice and then hit search, I would see much more results below here in the My Tasks panel. And if I were to go back up top here to clear out those results and then hit search again, that would show me my original My Task panel results. So from these two panels, I can filter through my results depending on what I need to see in these panels. I could find an existing application using the My Tasks panel, or I can initiate a new application using the View Available Funding Opportunities panel. When I select one of these new opportunities, a window would appear giving me more information on the opportunity that I'm about to initiate. It'll tell me things like the availability dates when I'm allowed to open and submit this application, the due date when I need to have this application submitted, a description of the application, and a disclaimer. After reading through all this information, I can hit proceed to initiate this new application and be taken to the document landing page, which we'll see in a little bit. If I decide I do not need to initiate this application, I can select cancel. So that is how you would start a new application in the system. But let's say I want to navigate to an existing application that I've already initiated. So to do that, I can go to the My Tasks panel here and select that document from one of my available options. I can go to searches at the top, and I can go to recent documents and see specific documents that I've already selected in searches that I've made. Or I can go to one of these search pages to search for the document directly in the system. So let's say I go to this search, and I may not know the full name of the document that I'm searching for. I just know a few of the unique digits that I know are in that document's title. So what I can do is for the name, I can just put 033 and hit search. And then there is my specific document that I was looking for with 033 at the end of its unique ID number. So now I can see the organization that initiated this document, what type or template this application is applying to, the current status, its subcode, and the status date when the last status was changed. So I could export these results to a spreadsheet format, or I can select the organization's name to be taken directly into this document and to its landing page. So I'm going to select this document's name. So before we continue and go through actually navigating through this document, now that we've located it, I just want to make sure, are there any questions about the dashboard, those panels, or navigating to a document in the system?
Hey, Andrew, could you go back to My Tasks and see if there's an ability for them to sort by selecting the column blue headers?
Absolutely. Let's see here. So there is a way to sort by selecting the column blue headers, where it will then show you that information in ascending or descending order.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was a good call out.
That would be Erin Jacobson that made that wonderful call out. I'm only asking on her or their behalf.
Perfect.
There's also some folks were asking if the award feature is going to be easier to be searched. And you had demonstrated the My Application and View Available Funding Opportunity section, but I don't think you showed, and I could have missed it. Before folks log in at the login site, they're able to see the opportunity panel in the upper left-hand corner. And that tool is a new thing for us. And before folks even log into the system, they can search for available funding opportunities through the opportunity portal. And you only have to search by organization type. So hopefully you will find that a little bit easier to narrow down. So if you select that, I don't know that it's set up. This version that Andrew is showing you today may not have them set up. So if he did make a selection, it's unlikely that they get returned because they don't set them up with end dates or start dates like we have to do in the real world in production. They keep them open all the time in this environment that he's showing. But you can select your eligible organization type here, and that will allow you to see all of the applications that are funding opportunities that may be available for your organization type to apply for. So I hope that answers your question. And then it looks like we have another question about searching for a document. And when you search for a document, will those results only include documents you can access for your organization or for all documents in the system that match the search criteria? So I think I can answer this one. You only can, the only documents that are going to return in the search are documents that you're assigned to and you have permissions to access. So you will never be able to access other documents for other organizations unless they've added you as a user or given us permission to add you as a user to their system.
Exactly right. Yeah, there may be other documents that have 033 in their ID number in this system. In fact, I'm sure there are. I can just see the one that I'm assigned to. A really good question. Any other questions about using the search, navigating to the document, or that dashboard? Or anything else we've covered, really?
I just want to let Darcy know I got his comment down. And like the other suggestions you all have made today, I'm adding it to a note for us at Ecology to consider in the future, far, far future after we've all had vacations from working on this project for the last 2.5 years. Then we'll consider enhancements.
Perfect. Very good. All right, well, let's continue then with the presentation. Any questions, continue to drop those in the chat, but they've been really good so far. But now we'll get into what you'll be navigating through when you actually access one of the documents in the system. So the first thing that you would see is this document landing page. And this document landing page is going to give you very important information about this document. It's going to let me know the template for this specific application, the instance, and then this process. So it lets me know this is an application for the shorelands, floodplains by design. It tells me the current status of this application and its unique name. And it tells me what is the organization who initiated this application, my role on the document, which may be different from my role in the system, and the period date, the begin date for this application. So when did this application begin to cover this grant? That is that period date indicator here. And so I mentioned that my role on the document may be different from my role in the system. So there will be times when you may, let's say you may be in the system as a specific role, in this case, an authorized official. If I were to go to a document and I would just see here that I may be an authorized official in IGX, but I may have the role of a writer on this application, that would essentially mean that I would have a different set of permissions that apply to this document. So where an authorized official may be able to fill out and save all of these forms and then submit the application if that is what their permissions are. If I'm on this document as the writer, I may not be able to do any or all of those additional functions. So if I have a different role on this document than what I have in the system, that means I may have different permissions than what I would usually have. And if I want to come back to this document landing page from any part of this application as I'm navigating through it, I can either hover over the document title in the upper left to see some of that information, or I can click that title in the upper left to be taken back to this document landing page. So on this page, on this left side navigation menu, I see a few things that have been kind of organized into different sections, and I'm actually going to collapse those sections here. And the 4 sections that I have available are the forms to fill out on this document, tools that I can use on this document, status options, so statuses that I can change this document to, and then related documents, or what might be called sub-documents. So to start, let's open up our forms. And this will show me in different sections which forms there are to be filled out on this application. At the top are these funding program guidelines. These don't have any icons next to them because these are going to be links that you can select and use for reference. Down here, these application forms indicate that they're forms by having a form icon that lets you know the current status of those forms next to them. And these form icons are going to be indicative of what exactly is happening with your form at any given time. If you see a blank box, that's going to let you know that that form is currently unsaved with no information on it. If you see an exclamation point in either a circle or a triangle, that lets you know that a form may contain an error or a warning. We'll get into those in a little bit more detail, but the main gist of those two is that an error will prevent this document from going to another status. So it will prevent me from submitting this application. But this warning is going to let me know that there may be something that is risky about my application, such as maybe the amount I'm applying for. But the warning is still going to allow me to submit this application to change my status of this document. So the error will need to be resolved before I can change this document status. The warning does not need to be, but is going to let me know about a potential risk. If a document has been totally completed with no errors that will prevent it from going forward, you'll see a check mark within that box. And if you see a folder with an arrow pointing to the right, that indicates that there are multiple instances or multiple copies of this form for you to review. As well, you may also see a flag to let you know that that form has been incomplete. So if I'm navigating through the forms that I'm currently seeing on this application, I can see through these icons that most of these forms have been saved with information and they do not contain any errors or warnings. I do see that there are some additional forms available for the scope of work additional tasks. If I want to see what those forms are, I can select this folder icon to expand this menu. So now I can see all of these task forms. I can search through those forms if I want to, or I can select the form name to be taken into the form itself. But this is also letting me know that these forms have been saved with no errors. The only remaining form that I need to address that does have errors on it is this budget task cost match and funding request form. So let's go into this form to resolve that error check. So once this form loads, I can see in the upper right, this is what the alert would look like for an error check that you have on a form. It's going to tell me the details of what I need to resolve on this form, and then it will tell me where exactly on this form I need to change that information. So right now it's letting me know for question 5 I need to create an upload. For question 6, I need to give an answer. And if I wanted to be taken straight to that part of the form to resolve that error check, I can just left click on this notice. Take me to question 5, where I am required to upload a document. And so this is where I can demonstrate what the new upload field will look like in IGX. Because what I can do here is I can put in a description for this document. Once that's done, I can then hit Browse to look through my system. And once I found the document that I want to drop in, I would select that document, and it would let me know that file has been uploaded successfully. If I want to access this document after it's been uploaded, I can select the title of that document to be taken in directly to it. And if I want to add additional documents, I do have the option here to add a new row. Once I select adding a new row, I'll then be able to give a new description, choose the next document that I'd like to add. If I decided I did not need any additional documentation, I could then remove this row. But let's say I want to add in one more document, so I'd select that here. So now I've added one more. Both have been confirmed. Let's say I still need to upload an additional document, but I may have made a wrong selection. I can select this X to get rid of that document. And let's say I want to select one more, so I'd select another and upload that here. And there is a question about uploading multiple documents at the same time. What you could do is you could add a new row to upload an additional document, or like Don suggested, you may be able to upload a zip file containing multiple files in one folder. So since I decided I do not need a third additional document, I'm going to select Remove Row and confirm that I do not need that row. So now that I have resolved this specific error check, I've uploaded this document. I'm now going to hit Save in the upper right corner. That error check will disappear from my alerts, letting me know that has now been resolved, and there is no longer a red outline around this description field. So that lets me know that this error check has now been taken care of. And as mentioned in the chat, that there is not a date field for letting you know when the document has been uploaded here. There is a way to see when the document has been uploaded using a different document tool that we'll get to. But it is important to note that the upload limit has been increased to 200 megabytes for any uploads that you want to add to a form. And for the most part, most document types are available to upload. So docx's, PDFs, XLS files, most of those will be available to be uploaded using these fields. So I've resolved one error check now on this form. What I want to do is I want to resolve the next one. So I'm going to select 6. And it's going to take me to this question here, where I need to choose one of two options, a yes or a no question. So if I were to choose no, I could just hit save and resolve this error check and continue on with my form like it has been. But if I select yes, it's going to open up what is called a form dependency. In a dependency is logic that will hide part of a form automatically until that part of the form is needed. So in this case, until I selected yes, I did not need this additional field to give an explanation. I didn't need to upload this additional file. So if that selection was not made, I would not see that part of the form. So let's say I select no, and I hit save. It'll resolve that error check, and it'll let me know that that error has been resolved here. But if I select yes and don't use this additional text area and hit save, it'll let me know that even though I've selected yes, I will need to still give an explanation in this text field here to continue with this document. So what I'll do here is I'll give my explanation. I'll select the file that they want me to upload. Then once I have entered in my information here, I would hit save. Once that's done, I can now see that all my error checks have been resolved. That form icon has changed. There's no red outline around these questions. So now I should be able to go to status options here and select application submitted or application canceled and change the status of this document. Now let's say I'm filling out this document and I want to know what is still going to be an issue on this document that might be preventing it from going forward. What I'll do is I'm going to revert back to get that error check. And if I wanted to see, if I'm going through my document and I just want to know exactly where I need to go to fix anything on my document that's going to prevent this status change from happening, in this left navigation menu, I can select document validation. And what document validation is going to do is it's going to tell me what form is having this issue, what specific issue is happening, and if this issue is going to prevent my document from changing statuses. So I can select document validation if I ever want to see that information at a glance, or if I were to try to submit this application without resolving this error check. That would also bring up document validation, letting me know that before I can make this submission, there is still some work that I need to do. So let's resolve this one more time and hit save. So now we've taken care of all the issues preventing this application from being submitted. All this information here has been saved. Looks good to me. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to this left side and I'll select application submitted. When I do, it's going to let me know that I can make this change. It'll confirm which change is being made. It'll give me a disclaimer to read before I agree to this change. I can leave any notes about the status change down here if I want. Then once I've left that note or not, I can then hit OK. The document landing page will be where I'm taken to. It will refresh, and it will now let me know that the document status has changed to application submitted. So if I were to scroll down here, I can now see under status options, I no longer have any abilities available to my external user. That's letting me know this has now been submitted and an internal user will now need to make another status change. So are there any questions about navigating through these forms, some of the functionality that you might see, or submitting that application?
Andrew, I don't know if you're going to cover this later, and I don't believe you do. So would you mind opening the uploads form? It's on the under the application forms on the left now.
Yeah, let's open that up.
So one of our Ecology coworkers made a comment in the chat and pointed out that the uploads that Andrew was talking about pertain to individual program-specific documents. When you have an application form that has a program-specific form on it, not an agency standard one like the uploads form, the ability for you to upload documents to it is typically limited to once the application is submitted, and you can never upload there again. But the uploads form is an agency standard form. It's a form that's part of every application opportunity that goes out. And that uploads is usually available to folks to use and upload documents on throughout the life of the agreement. So this is what that form looks like in its feature and function to how the uploads, entering the descriptions and using the browse feature and using the plus sign to create additional fields if you need it. Those are available to you here, and it functions exactly the same way as it does on the program specific form. So just so you guys can see that and understand the difference if everyone didn't understand the reference in chat. Also, they would like to see that Jerry asked if you could show how to do a status change again, if you don't mind using the left navigation bar.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to use since I submitted this application, I'm going to go to a different application in the system here. So this is another application that is in process. All of these forms have been completed. This is a different template, but with that form completed, what I would do to submit the application is I would go to this left navigation bar and I would go down to status options. This is where I have the ability to either change the status to application submitted or to application canceled. If I were to cancel this application, that would mean that I would have one application that would then be re-available to my organization. So for example, if my organization can initiate, let's say up to 10 applications, if I initiate one application, that number goes down to 9. And if I decide I want to cancel this application, I don't really want to fill this out, that number would go back to 10. So anytime you cancel an application, you should be then eligible to initiate another application as an organization. But if you were to select application submitted, so I'm going to select submitted. When I do, it brings up a pop-up window that confirms what that status change is going to be. It gives me a note about that status change. I can leave a note here if I want, and whoever sees the status history will see this note. But then I can hit OK. And my document landing page refreshes to let me know that the status change has been now into application submitted. Exactly right, yeah. So application submitted is how I would change my application status from this left side menu. It's not where I would see already submitted applications. Right, so I don't think that there are any additional questions, just making sure that we've gotten everyone addressed so far.
Just want to make sure everyone caught the chat. You're not going to be covering how to fill out a payment request and progress report today. You are creating a video for us to have available for all posterity on how to do that. It's going to be, once it's completed, it'll be posted and hosted on Ecology's web pages. And we do plan on sending out a link to that video as soon as it's available to all active users inside the database.
Yeah, very good call out. That PR video will be coming out directly, so you'll be able to see more information on that process. This is more of a general overview of what it's like to submit or to fill out any kind of document in IGX.
So Kayla, you may think you won now, but you're going to have to face the music and fill one out eventually. So you're only postponing the inevitable.
So a good thing to point out too is for that application submission, when that application is submitted, there is an automated system notification that will go out to Ecology, letting them know that the application status has changed. So you can keep that in mind when that status change does occur, that is being alerted and being forwarded to Ecology. And before we get into document tools, I also want to cover that your appearance and how you work through this form may be impacted by your page size. So if I were to, let's say, access one of these forms, I can kind of show you here that as I change the size of this form, let's say if I was on a smaller device or using a different window, that would change the functionality of how I'm navigating through this document. So it's important to note that that size of my window may be impacting my functionality and my appearance. So keep that in mind as you are filling out your documents in IGX and using the IGX system in general.
So Andrew, they're wondering when you're going to have the PR training video done, do you think?
So I know, let's see. So I want to say that we're probably going to have that probably available closer to the end of October. I know that we want to give time for us to have a back and forth with Ecology to make sure that we're giving the best possible version of that VR video. Hopefully, it will be made available sooner than that if that goes really quickly. And then once that video is put together, we would then pass that along to Ecology to get to you.
So we do have Jill already and Darby volunteering to, or be able, or Darcy and Jill to test. So maybe we'll have them check it out for us when that's available and then give us some feedback too. But we do have step-by-step instructions available that are written, that are inside the manual as well. And so that will help you in the interim. And Jill, in regards to the comment about PRPRs being extended, I'm not aware of an agency-wide email being sent out by our change manager regarding that topic. It's probably something that was sent out that was program specific. If those of you that have done work with Ecology grants and loans know that payments at a minimum, a progress report is due quarterly, and they're due within 30 days of the end of the quarter. So July, at the end of September 30th, was the end of the quarter. So that means that July, August, and September quarter, it would be due October 30th. And so since the system is, delayed from the go live period, and we had to go through the blackout period, Ecology will, be able to try to extend that time for some folks, but I can't give you a carte blanche answer like across the board because of the uncertain state of the world that we're in right now in budgets. And I don't know for sure what tomorrow will bring sometimes. And so we may need you to meet a requirement and get those payments in, for a specific reason, maybe if it's got special funding considerations. So just know that everybody just do the best that you can. We understand everything's new and weird, and we'll do our best to provide support and assistance. Individual programs will send out communication in case there's something special about what their requirements are. So I'm thinking if you had to be late, if you just let Ecology know they've worked with folks all the time, and just do the best you can. So, and can you submit a PRPR in 1015? If, the whatever higher power you believe in is willing and the creek don't rise, yes, you will be able to submit a PRPR once we go live on October 15th. Yes. Would be great if the new system allowed us to upload expenses from Excel. That is something that folks have brought up in the past. I'll make sure I re-add that to the list, Robin. Thank you for that feedback as well.
Good. All right, so I think we will then continue on. Keep dropping those questions into the chat. Really appreciate all the feedback and all the questions that we've gotten so far. But let's continue on now. And I'm going to go back to my home page and to my dashboard by selecting the home button. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to navigate back to that document that I was looking at before. And this time, instead of searching for that document, I'm going to go to my tasks. It's not going to be listed here because I'm no longer active on that document because it was submitted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Filter. I'm going to search for all documents I'm assigned to. I'm going to specify part of the name of that document. And I'm going to hit search. So that then narrows down my selection, and I can find the application that I submitted. So now on this application, what we're going to look on this left side menu navigation bar at is we're going to go below these forms, and we're now going to look at these document tools. And these document tools are going to be useful for us to use to give us more information on a document or to help communicate about a document. So the first tool that we're going to look at is for Add Edit People. And Add Edit People is going to let me know which users are currently assigned to this document, what their roles are, their organization, when they are made active, and by who. And so what I could do here is I can see here for Lori, because her name is grayed out, I do not have access to see her user profile, likely because she is not a member of my organization. But I would be able to select the information for this other user to see their user profile. I could also edit this user to either change their role on the document, to change their active date, or to assign them an inactive date. And if I were to give them an inactive date on this document, once that inactive date passes, they would still be able to access the IGX system, but they would just no longer be able to access this specific document for this organization. So they would search, but they would not be able to find this document. So this can be useful if you have a user who let's say is only going to be needed as a reviewer or some sort of writer on an application. You could then assign them, and then when you know that they will no longer need access to that application, you could then assign them the inactive date. Once that inactive date passes, they would no longer see that application in their tasks panel, and they would no longer be able to search for it. So if I wanted to, I could add a new user to this document, but as my authorized official role, I would only be able to add a new user to this document from my existing organization. So I'd only be able to add from my organization to this document. If I wanted to add another person to this document that was registered with a different organization, I would need to contact EAGL support. That's again, eagle.support@ecy.wa.gov. I would reach out to Ecology to let them know about the additional users I'd want to add from different organizations. Ecology would then get those users added. So just to confirm, as my authorized official, I can only add new users to this document from my organization. The next tool we're looking at is the attachment repository. So here, I can see all of the documents, all of the files that have been uploaded to this document. So all the files uploaded to this specific application. It tells me which form on which those files have been uploaded, the field name for where it was uploaded, a description if it was left, and a link directly to that attachment. So I can be taken directly into one of these files here. I have the option of exporting some or all of these files to my device in a zip file. I would select zip, and it would then download that zip folder containing all of these files directly to my device. And that's what I can then deselect if I did not want to export any of these to a zip file. The next tool that we're going to show you, since we've already shown you document validation, is going to be print documents. With print document, it's going to give me information for all of the forms on this document. What I would then be able to do is choose if I want to include those forms in this print version that I'm going to be creating. If I want to include those forms with their attachments. If I want to exclude those forms, if they don't apply to the print version that I'm putting together, or if I want to include a version of those forms with a blank copy. So as I've made my choice of which forms I want to print and how I want to print them, I would then select this print button here. What this would do is then assemble the print version of this application for me, of this document. It would then download that version directly to my device. When that's done, I'll then be able to open that up and review this document here. If everything looks good, I would then be able to continue. The last document tool that we'll go over will be for messages. Like system messages, this is where you can see messages that you have received about the specific document. So you can see which system messages have gone out related to this document. I would be able to, like my system messages inbox, select open to see the details of that message. I can see the information on who it was sent to and when. I would be able to search through my existing messages and then also be able to search for archive messages once I've archived anything related to this document. So those are all the document tools that we're going to be showing you today. The last part of our presentation here is going to be going over how to initiate and navigate through sub-documents or related documents. And there are
Before you get to that,
please,
Andrew, can you really quick show where Tanya wanted to know if you could sort within the uploaded documents?
Yeah, so if we go to, let's say, attachment repository here.
Yes.
And just like here, yeah, at the top here with these field names, usually. I see. So we may need to look at that, but these field names look like they can't be sorted. If we select that top bar, it just gives you the names in alphabetical order based upon the form names.
Perfect. Thank you. And then can you show folks where the external training manual be located?
Yeah, if you ever need
icon. Yeah, it should be right there.
Exactly. You would select this training materials button in your top navigation bar, and this could take you straight into the external user manual. So you'd be able to download that manual and start reading through it.
Perfect. And then Jenny asks, are we no longer going to get external emails about happenings in IGX if we're getting internal messages? Jenny, you'll be getting both, just like you did in IG.
Yeah, so there are
thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, of course, yeah. There are these messages here. You should also be getting emails related to these messages too. I'm going to go back to that application, back to one of these applications. So now we'll go over how to initiate and navigate between documents and sub-documents. So on this document here, I can see it's in the current status of agreement active. So what I could do then as my authorized official is on this left side here, I can go to the related documents. There's already a payment request document that's been created for this application. But I can choose this button here to initiate a related document. Once I do, it would let me know the parent document, and it would let me then choose which of these kinds of subdocuments that I'd like to create. Another way to initiate this subdocument would be from your dashboard. So instead of navigating to this form, to this application that is ready to have a subdocument made, all I would need to do is be on my dashboard, and I would select the Initiate Related Document button from the My Tasks panel. What I would then be able to do is choose which parent document that I want to initiate this subdocument from. So this is the document I was just looking at. This will be the parent document that I choose. And then I would choose which kind of subdocument that I want to create. So in this case, let's say I want to create the equipment purchase report. I've made that decision and I select create. It would give me information on the subdocument I'm about to create. So my provider organization and the dates, availability, and due date. So when I'm able to initiate, and then when I need to make sure this is completed. So I would hit proceed, and I would be taken to the document landing page for my subdocument. So this will look just like an application, but it'll let me know from this information that I am now in the purchase report, not the application. What I could then do is go into the subdocument form here on this left side. I could fill out all this information here. And once I have filled out all the information for this subdocument and resolved all of these error checks, I could just go straight to the bottom of my form here and select Save and Submit to not just save the changes that I've made to this form, but automatically submit this purchase report to Purchase Report Submitted, all in one button. And just like if I tried to submit one of my other applications, if I selected that button, but I still had error checks that were active, it would let me know with document validation where those error checks are and what I would need to do to resolve them. So now that I'm in my subdocument, if I want to get back to my original application, I can go down to this left side here for related documents. And I can see this payment request, which is another subdocument, and then application, which is my parent document. So if I select application with a left click, I can then see the information for my original document, my application. If I select that name, I would then be taken to the document landing page for that application. Conversely, if I want to get back to seeing that subdocument that I just initiated, I could then go back to that left side on the bottom to related documents, select the purchase report, and that report's title to be taken back into that subdocument. So what I would then do is fill out this information and choose the status option for Equipment Purchase Report Submit. And you'll notice if I go back to this application and I try to initiate another related document, it'll give me options, but that specific equipment purchase report will be also made available here. There may be some options that I choose where I would need to finish the original subdocument before I create another one. So in some cases, I would need to finish my initial progress report before I can create and submit another progress report. So I'm going to navigate back to my dashboard here. And that concludes what we are going to be covering today for the IGX overview of the system. It's just the basics of how you would fill out and navigate through any document in the system, whether that's an application, a progress report, a reimbursement request. That's essentially what you would do to go through all of those steps. We went through what it's like to fill out those forms, what errors you might see and how to resolve them, how to submit that document in the system, then how to use those document tools and initiate those subdocuments. So now let's take a pause here. I just want to make sure if you have any questions, definitely want to get those answered. I see there are some questions that are kind of waiting for us in the chat right now.
So, Andrew, would you mind showing the navigation bar for one of the agreements or applications so that you can remind folks where the uploads form is? Jade was wondering where a memo or some other document associated with an open grant would be uploaded. And again, it's that uploads form that's found underneath the application forms dropdown in the left navigation bar. That will be available for you to edit and add agreements or documents related to your agreement throughout the until the agreement is closed.
Yeah, very good question.
So Andrew did mention and talk a little bit about the payment request and progress report. We also will have another video out that talks specifically about the equipment purchase report and the recipient closeout report, and those will be available for you as well in the coming weeks. We do have the external user manual. It's going through its final review for ADO compliance. That's going to be available and uploaded into the system when you are able to access it. And we'll be available to answer any questions or provide support using the support tool, or you can email us at eagle@ecy.wa.gov. Andrew, outstanding job. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Don. Really appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining us here today. If there are any additional questions, please feel free to reach out. But I really appreciate everyone hanging in there and being so engaged with all of your questions today. I hope we got everything answered. If there's anything else, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, it was great presenting to everyone today. Thank you for joining us and have a great rest of your day.